But Jared, this should be the only joystick. And realistically, Jared, he's rich enough now. He should have a television that he just speaks to. Like, I don't even want him touching anything that has buttons on it. Nothing. I want him only playing with this and the remote to watch film. Okay, that's it. Until then, the week 1 when we beat the Chiefs' ass in Arizona.
Pretty confident.
I'm waiting and seeing. Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nick Nenad.
I am Jared Smith.
Guys, we finally made it. We finally made it, guys. It is football season. We are finally back.
Football is that, Nick?
Oh, it's a dirty football. That means it's been used. That means it's a game ball, Jared. You know, any football you see in an NFL game or a college football game or a high school, it's always the worst football you can find, right? It's a weathered football is what the pros use, is what the new college pros use, and what the high school kids use. All that means, though, is football is back. High school football started this weekend. College football starts this Saturday, maybe even earlier. I haven't checked the full schedule. And then, of course, the NFL in a couple weeks. But, guys, college football's back, so we're having a whole show talking about the SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, and all those other random conferences nobody cares about. Okay, we're going to be doing a full college football preview for you today. We're going to be looking at the top 25 teams, the best players this year, maybe some surprise teams that are oddly ranked. And, of course, we're going to go over our local favorite teams as well. Jared, first of all, I know you were out covering football this past weekend. What does it feel like to have football back this weekend? I know we're not going to get the best college football games. The amount of big time games isn't going to happen until 2 weeks from now. But how does it feel? We finally can turn on our TVs on the weekend and get legitimate football that matters.
I mean, the feeling's amazing, right? Like, even sitting here and watching preseason games, like, my girlfriend's literally like, we're seriously watching this right now? Like, she understands it's preseason, but I'm like, babe, it's football. It's been like 4 or 5, however many months without anything. I don't care what it is at this point. I don't care if it's the third stringers, the backups, the dudes that aren't even going to make a team. It's football. I need it. Like, I will sit here and watch it all day long, and it does bug the shit out of her. And I'm sorry for that, but I need to get my fix. And then, yes, I was covering, down in San Diego, covering one of the games this weekend. I was in Ramona, covering Ramona and Christian. So it was the home opener for Ramona, which was awesome. They ended up winning 28-0, which is really cool. It was more just the crowd, right? They had like a beach theme going on for the student section. They had like a DJ in the stands, pumping up the crowd the entire game. The marching band was awesome. So just the energy that you get from going to, a football game, let alone a high school Friday night lights football game, and then to be able to see college and the professional level, on TV it's still technically summer, right? I don't think we've gotten out of that yet, but it is 100% football time. I know you've been doing a lot of research the last couple of hours getting ready for this. So let's dive into it, man. I mean, we can go a million different ways. There's a million different teams to talk about, but there's probably only 4 or 5 real relevant teams that are even going to make it to the college football playoff and the college football championship. Alabama, Ohio State, just to name a few, right? So, we can dive into everything. We can just jump into Alabama and have an entire Alabama show, since Alabama will probably be in the championship. Whatever you want to do, I'll leave it up to you.
Hey, Jared, stop that. Stop. Don't just give Alabama the championship this year, okay? Remember, they went in, and they didn't even win it last year, okay? The underdogs won, much to the chagrin of you. I did pick Georgia last year to win that ball game, and they came through for me, right? So let's not just give it to Alabama. I know they have Bryce Young. I know that they have the most amount of All-Americans, first team, second team, third team that you could have. But again, they kind of always have that, right? And they do have a very difficult schedule, which we'll get into. And so let's not give Alabama the championship. Let's not give Ohio State it right now. You don't know if a quarterback gets hurt, a big-time player gets hurt. So let's get into it.
Trying to play the injury card. Okay.
Of course. Yeah, I know. It's not fair. We can never do that. That's not fair. We should make that illegal on this show. First of all, Jared, you're actually not wrong, though. When you do look at the top 5 in college football, I've been doing research past couple of days and a ton right before this show. The top 5 in college football in the AP top 25 poll, as well as the coaches poll, consists of Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and Notre Dame in that order. When you actually look at the talent as far as the players on the teams go, that's also who the top 5 teams are. Okay, so it does make sense that we do have a top 5 consisting of those teams. And I really have no argument who's number 1, number 2, number 3. It's not really going to matter until about halfway through the season, realistically. So let's just get that off the top. I think the top 5 are fine. Obviously, maybe some people are going to, question Clemson because they had a very odd year last year. I personally think DJ, our boy from St. John Bosco, is going to have a better year. He lost a lot of weight. They still have a ton of talent, guys. I mean, all that championship recruiting they were getting over the years. Do you really think one bad year is going to turn that program into a shit show? I don't think so. I think they're going to be back this year and back in a big way. And then Notre Dame, guys, they have a lot of talent. They play that physical brand of football. No complaints there as well. Jared, what are your thoughts on the top 5? Just seeing those teams, you have the Alabamas, Ohio States, Georgia, and then you do have Clemson and Notre Dame coming in there that weren't necessarily way up at the top last year.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say gripe because once again, like it's preseason and this is where I'm actually being serious. Like other than Alabama at number 1, I think you can make an argument for any of those other top 4 or 5 teams to put them in different spots, vice versa. But really, I'm looking at Texas A&M at number 6. And with Jimbo Fisher, with the talent that they have, the top ranked class that they're bringing in, with the fact that Clemson had a down year and they lost Brent Venables, right? Their highest paid defensive coordinator in all of college football to go be the head coach at Oklahoma, right? Like good for him. You can't pass that up, especially because he has ties there to Oklahoma. But I think Clemson, I don't know if they're going to get back on track. It's like I said, they have a down year last year. They still have talent, but defensively, I don't see it. So I would actually put Texas A&M at number 4. I would move Clemson down to number 6. And then as far as the rest of the top 5 goes, I'm fine. But Texas A&M, I think, deserves a little more shine. Also being in the SEC, I think a lot tougher conference than the ACC. Clemson has a little easier road potentially. So at least for the preseason, before we see any game action, I'm putting Texas A&M at number 4, moving Clemson down.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair too. And when you look at the SEC, obviously there's a better chance that those teams end up getting far. We all know there's kind of a media bias towards those teams, right? And when you look at the strength of schedule, and this is going to be a big one for me when you look at these teams, talent or not, Texas A&M, out of all the ranked teams, has the most difficult schedule. So, again, this is where, Jared, I was saying this, I think, off the show to you, that there's a lot of questionable ranking here for the AP top 25 because they're putting Texas A&M at number 6, and talent-wise, I don't think they're there. You said top 5 recruiting class. That doesn't really matter for this year necessarily, right? They do have Jimbo Fisher. They had a successful year last year, right? But I think they put a team like this super high because they know that they're going to lose a game. They know they might lose 2 games, so might as well try to fit that team back in later on in the year. If we have some craziness, Jared, and we have a bunch of 2-loss teams, they're going to be like, oh, well, Texas A&M had the most difficult schedule. How do we not put them in? Right? So I think that's where you see a team like Texas A&M up here at number 6. They do have the most difficult schedule. And number 2 behind them is Alabama. So, and they will play each other this year too. So Alabama at number 1 also has the second most difficult schedule out of any of the ranked teams. And I think it's like number 6 overall in the entire nation too. So it's not like they're down at 15. These SEC teams are legitimately going to get murdered every single week. And I mean that by not like literally getting killed every game. I think it's like there's going to be some guys hurt after a lot of these games because these are NFL games essentially happening on the field. So yeah, it's interesting with Texas A&M, but if they win games and they end up only losing the game this year, Jared, I'm telling you, they're in. They're in the 4 because of the strength of schedule, right?
100%.
When we move down the rankings, right? And this doesn't need to be a whole ranking show, right? I just want to go over some. You have Michigan, who's up there at number 8. I don't think many people are going to argue because they return a lot of players. They do lose some key players, the Chase Hutchinsons of the world, all those guys. But still very, very talented. When you look at the talent on the team, it's great, and obviously difficult schedule. And then you have teams like Utah and Oklahoma. Okay, I know Utah has a good team. I don't understand how they're ranked number 7 here, though, because Jared, when you look at their strength of schedule, it's the second easiest out of the top 25 teams that are in the Power 5. We're not going to count the Cincinnatis and the Houstons and the BYUs and all those guys. Utah's down there. So strength of schedule wise, it's pretty easy. And again, they play the Pac-12. So again, maybe we see a little media bias trying to get a Pac-12 team in there. Right, Jared? They're going to give them a chance. They're going to be like, well, we know you have an easy schedule. Let's put you in number 7, because then if you go undefeated, it's going to be kind of impossible to put teams above you. If Notre Dame loses, then they're out, right? So we're ranking there. And Oklahoma, Jared, I did a lot of research on Oklahoma today. Wasn't much to find. They had zero players in the preseason All-American team, the national. Jared, in the Big 12, 0 first-team players. 0. So
Not good.
How the hell is this team number 9? New coach.
Name alone.
They lost their quarterback.
Name alone.
You're telling me General Booty makes them a number 9 team? Come on, guys. What are we doing here? I'm not even making fun of the guy's name.
Great NIL deal. I'll tell you that.
What's his NIL deal? I've been wondering this.
It's something I saw it like on a T-shirt, and it was like something like "get that booty" or something. They used some phrase with his name. I mean, it was almost like inevitable that was going to happen. Like, good for him, But I think that's like all Oklahoma's going to really have to celebrate this year. I think Texas is going to get him. Obviously, the Big 12. I don't think it's that strong of a conference this year. So, once again, to your point, I think what happened with this college football committee is they're probably trying to pump some of these teams up to get higher ratings for these games.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And then it's going to be like, okay, when they lose, hopefully it's a close game, competitive. But when they lose, it's like, oh my gosh, a top 10 team lost. Oh my gosh, a top 5 team lost. Right. Going back to Utah, they opened at Florida. And now Florida's not ranked, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, right now. But still,
like that's
tough. Like who's taking Utah going into Florida?
No way, bro. Right? You can't.
You know what I'm saying? It's just it's not happening. I'm sorry. And that game's nationally televised as well on ESPN. So someone's probably got some ties to ESPN. They want that game nationally televised. Top 10 team's going to lose. Florida's if Utah will go from 7 to 15, and then Florida will get bumped into the top 25. What's going to happen?
You have to. Florida with a brutal schedule this year as well. I mean, most of the SEC teams. Real quickly, too, before we get on, the top out of the top 5 toughest schedule this year, Auburn number 1, Mississippi State number 2, and Tennessee number 5. It's like Vanderbilt, Rutgers thrown in the middle of there. We all know they're not going to be successful, so it doesn't really matter about mentioning them. But as far as teams that could kind of make a run to have talented rosters, Auburn, Mississippi State, and Tennessee are those teams to look at. If they start winning games, it means they're better than a lot of other teams because they have the toughest schedule. Florida was up there in the top 10 as well. So and let's move on with that, Jared. I think the big question here when you do look at these rankings is USC, Miami, and then when you look at the coaches poll, Texas. So Texas in the AP top 25 doesn't exist. Nope. They don't exist. Nope. In the coaches poll, they're number 18. Jared, we're the first place vote. Now, I don't want to make any claims, but when they did this coaches poll, is Steve Sarkisian back to his ways? Like, come on, man. Is that the guy that did it? I don't want to accuse anybody of doing stuff, but like the guy has a past with the beverages, and to see, one coach put them at number 1, I think that's the sole reason they're at the top. They're even in the rankings, right? Like that one swing.
whoever gave them that first place vote, like I'm okay with them being in the teens, maybe in the 20s. I think that's 15 or 16, whatever you just said, was a little too rich. I'd probably put them at like 20 or 21, totally fine. I think whoever gave them that first place vote thought that like Archie Manning was already there and was like going to be playing right now.
Oh
I
yeah,
think we
that's true.
forget like Archie Manning is still a senior in high school and he's not going to be on campus until the spring of 2023 at the earliest, right? So yeah, like Texas, they had a great recruiting class for next year, and they're looking to have a great recruiting class for 2024. But we're still currently in 2022, right? So yeah, I think the smoke is getting to be a little too much for Texas, and that is a team right there that the expectations are always high. So even if they're not ranked, it's like Texas, they have their own TV network, right? Like they do things so much bigger there. It's so crazy that their expectations are always going to be high, almost like the Cowboys. I didn't even want to mention my Cowboys, but still, it's almost that high of expectations, irregardless. So, not surprising to see them in the coaches poll that high, but let's give them, first of all, a year or two to get these recruiting classes stacked up and then eventually move into the SEC with Oklahoma. And then we can really see how good Texas is because I don't really care about Texas in the Big 12. Like the Big 12 to me is a joke now, right? With all these teams moving, USC and UCLA going to the Big 10, all this movement going on, we're going to lose really the top 5 best conferences is really probably going to go to top 2 or maybe even top 3. So the Big 12 don't really care about that. Like I'm going to care about Texas next year when they get Archie Manning, when there's a potential that they move to the SEC, if not then 2024. But right now, Texas, waste of time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that Texas and Oklahoma were in the SEC this year. Doesn't exist. No, they're still in the Big 12. So again, they're not going to be now. Texas did decide to play Alabama this year, which is it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, Jared. But they are not in the SEC. UCLA and USC are not in the Big Ten this year. They're still in their conferences. So all that, I mean, really, the biggest news about college football does not actually exist for this year. The only thing that we have new, which we'll get into a little bit later, Jared, is we're in the full NIL now with college football. So, we're going to be seeing some teams, some players that are getting paid now legitimately, and we'll see how their play on the field is affected. When we have these top teams, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform. Back to the original 3 teams I mentioned, though, Jared, when you look at USC, Miami, and Texas, those teams that are kind of ranked there, again, talent-wise, not the greatest compared to a lot of the teams maybe behind them in the rankings or just above them. Who do you think out of those 3 teams is gonna end up the lowest in the rankings this year?
I'm like, blind man, just kind of picking it. I'm happy to take USC, and that's because of Lincoln Riley. And I guess out of all 3 schools right now, I trust him and what he's been able to do early on in his first year. Right, bringing over Caleb Williams, the fact that USC, I think, probably right now has the most talented roster constructed. I think Miami, you bring in a new coaching staff. You bring in a couple new quarterback recruits as well, transfer portal guys. But what has Miami done in the last couple of years overall? Right, they've
Yeah, true.
underperformed heavily. Texas, same thing. Even though they have Steve Sarkisian, and I do like him when he's not on the sauce and when he's straight level-headed. But same thing. I think when you stack their rosters up to each other, I think you got to look at head coach, quarterback, and then the rest of the rosters. So I think USC wins with head coach. I think USC wins with quarterback, and I think
True.
USC, you can make an argument that USC wins with their entire roster. They at least check 2 of those 3 boxes. So I'm giving it to USC. Also, being in the Pac-12, right, you have Utah, who is currently at number 7, and a lot of people think that they're higher than we do, or we believe they should be. But other than Utah, like, is UCLA going to be a threat this year? How good is Oregon really going to be, right? I believe their first game is against Georgia, the defending national champions. So good luck, even though it's going to be a neutral site, not in Georgia. I think Oregon's going to fall really quick on their ass. Georgia's going to come out and spank them, and Oregon's going to have to, kind of get back on that high horse as the season goes on. But I'm looking at USC, not only their quarterback, head coach, and roster, look at just the teams that they're having to go up against in their own Pac-12. Doesn't seem like much of a big deal. This isn't the SEC, right? This isn't even the Big Ten. So, yeah, give me USC to be the lowest seed. I think a good finish for USC is finishing somewhere around 7 or 8 and making like a good bowl game.
But yeah, that'd be huge.
Oh no, it would. But I don't see them anywhere near the college football playoff this year. I think that's all next year and the year after when they get the Lincoln's recruits, 2023, 2024. That's when USC will have the potential to take off. Right now, still too early. And to me, we're just wasting breath talking about them.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you make good points, Jared. Obviously, I think Lincoln Riley is the better coach out of Steve Sarkisian and Mario Cristobal, the former Oregon coach. Quarterback wise, Caleb Williams might be the best quarterback in the league, not league, but in college football. Besides Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Stetson Bennett, there's a legitimate case to put him at number one, right, for what he did at Oklahoma.
Did you just say Stetson Bennett?
Jared, he won a championship last year. How could you say he's?
You are not gonna put him in the same breath as Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud.
Jared, stop it. Jared, stop it. He won the championship.
I don't care that he won the championship. Good for him.
How could a guy that won a championship not be considered a top 5 quarterback in college football? I don't understand that.
Georgia had arguably one of the best defenses in all of college football history, plus all of those weapons that they had. All Stetson Bennett had to do was drop back. He could have read the.
You could say the same about the other
team.
You can say the same about the other team, Jared. Besides Oklahoma, actually, I think that's probably why the case.
You must have been hanging out with Steve Sarkisian. You want to talk about being on the sauce? You're crazy right now.
Hey.
No, listen, you can win a championship now. You usually, like 95% of the time, you need an elite or at least great quarterback to get you there. But when you were Georgia's team as constructed last year, 2001, 2002. That team did not need an elite quarterback to get them where they needed to go. Okay, please, that defense carried that team. Okay, and the reason why Stetson Bennett was even playing was because, if I'm not mistaken, why am I blanking on their backup quarterback who was coming off a torn ACL, the former USC guy,
JT Daniels,
yeah, JT Daniels. He was coming off of an ACL, right? And so he was kind of like healthy at the beginning of the season. I think got banged up again. So really, Bennett was in there because of injury. I don't think Bennett was in there because, the coaches were like, hey, this is our guy going forward. This is our guy that's going to lead us to the promised land. No, I'm sorry. Okay, the guy was like maybe a 2-star athlete. No offense. Like, give him all his praise. Good for him for winning and doing his job. But he is not the reason. He's not the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth reason that Georgia won that national championship. So he does not deserve to be mentioned in the same breath. I'll put it to you this way right now. If the NFL draft was today, would Stetson Bennett be a first-round pick?
Jared, that doesn't matter as much, though. Okay, because when you look, Jared,
it doesn't matter.
Because it doesn't matter. Look at Tim Tebow, one of the best college quarterbacks of all time. Look at Matt Leinart. Those guys were awful in the NFL. They got drafted high, but we all knew they weren't going to succeed. Trust me, I watched Matt Leinart. It was tough. Thank God we got Kurt Warner, and it was competent for a couple years. But yeah, no, I mean, not fun. Not fun sometimes. Guys do succeed in college, and then they end up not succeeding in the NFL. I'm just saying, college-wise, he still has a lot of talent around him at Georgia.
Exactly. It's the talent around him that's making him good. It's not making the talent better.
He's number 5, but he's still up there.
He's not even in the top 10. He's not even in the top 15.
Well, to just get back to what I was saying, though. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback for Texas. They just announced him. Kind of questionable. A lot of people thought that he wouldn't even be the starter. And then Miami, I couldn't even tell you who it is. So realistically, USC does have the most talent. They do have the easiest schedule out of those two teams as well. And so, yeah, I think USC will do better as well because they have a quarterback. Because they have a quarterback that's similar to Stetson Bennett on their roster. That's why. Okay.
Okay. USC also opens at home against Rice, which is a pretty, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that USC is going to win that game, right? When we look at other top matchups, like Ohio State opens against Notre Dame, that's a big time matchup. Like, I love when these teams come out right out of the gate and say, no, we don't want that cupcake game. Like, we want to go up against a real contender, right? Like, I seriously hate it. You see Alabama and a lot of the SEC teams do it every single year. They'll come out game 1, week 1, and it's just like a tune-up game where they're basically like, hey, some whatever low-end Division I school, Utah State or whatever, we'll give you guys like $500,000 to come and get your ass kicked for 3 hours. That's pretty much what it is, right? So I have a lot of respect for the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, the Oregons, even though I think they're going to get their ass kicked against Georgia, for coming out of the gates right away and saying, hey, we want to play a tough opponent. We don't want to play just some cupcake game. USC, on the other hand, is like, oh, yeah, we'll take Rice at home. Like, come on, guys. Like, you really want to elevate yourself. I know it's the new starter Lincoln Riley and his tenure there, but it's like, Rice, I think you can do better than that. And I think you have to take this into account. You have to look at your conference, right? The SEC, Alabama, and Georgia, those teams can afford to have Utah State or Rice on their schedule because their conference is so great. USC, your conference, other than 1 or 2 other teams, you don't really have anybody. So you're adding Rice to an already weak schedule. Like, that's cool. You blow them out 56-0. Who cares? Like, if you don't blow them out, if you let Rice score a touchdown, I would be upset. We'll put it that way. Like, if it's not a 56-0 blowout, then there's a problem.
Well, here's the thing, Jared. Again, I think that they made the move to get Rice on their schedule realistically, like when they were kind of terrible, right? And they still had Clay Helton at the helm. So I'm not going to blame them for scheduling Rice. But guess what? They got ranked number 14. Again, so they have the easiest schedule out of the Power 5 teams. They're ranked. The easiest. And it's by far, too. It's not like it's in the middle of all of college football. Like it's like the 80th most difficult schedule, or 60 something, right? It's a legitimate easy schedule. So that's why when you see this ranking of USC this high, you wonder if there's not like other factors going on behind. Maybe Fox is going, we're going to have a lot of ratings on these games. Let's put a number next to them that's a little sexy, so that when they kick these teams' ass to start the season, there's a reason, and they keep moving up. And then, like you said, Jared, Oregon, who's ahead of them at number 11, they play Georgia, not in Stanford, but they play them in Atlanta. You have Utah playing Florida, in Gainesville, one of the most difficult stadiums in the world to play at. Maybe they lose. You got to bump them up at that point, right? Notre Dame at Ohio State. We know that they play Notre Dame later in the season, always so, right? Again, you have that, we're going to have these big games, and let's put USC right in the middle. And, if Texas, they literally have a network with ESPN, literally, the Longhorn Network, if you guys don't know. Maybe they said, hey, there's that Manning kid coming in the year. Let's put them either real low in the rankings or like right outside of it so that they can succeed. And then again, Miami, right? We all have seen the U. We've seen the documentary. We remember, the Ray Lewis's, Ed Reed's, the Rock even played for them, right? Back in the day. Again, name recognition, you get Mario Cristobal, and for some reason they're up there, right? So with an easier conference. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for USC. But yeah, I mean, some big games, guys. Like you said, Jared, like you said, it's a different type of opening weekend. Technically, opening weekends this weekend. 2 weeks from now, though, on September, on September 4th, a lot of big games. Notre Dame at Ohio State. That's Ohio. That's Ohio Stadium. That's Ohio State. Utah at Florida. You also have Cincinnati and Arkansas. That's a big game more for Arkansas because they do have a very, very difficult schedule. The number 3 most difficult schedule out of the top 25 teams, right behind Alabama and Texas A&M. So yeah, and then of course Oregon and Georgia. If somehow Oregon wins that game, it throws everything into a loop and completely cancels out my Stetson Bennett point I just made 5 minutes ago. So let's go Bulldogs. But so yeah, very interesting, Jared. Very interesting how TV is kind of starting to maybe impact the college football a little bit.
Oh yeah, and I don't want to take the wind out of our sails here because we're rolling. But I just noticed this right now.
Live coming around my computer.
How
my
is
lights.
NC State the Wolf Pack sitting at number 13? Like,
okay, you want me to explain?
Did they do something at the end of last year that I missed? Because they're ahead of USC. at number 13. The Wolfpack? Like, when was the last time they were good? Like, didn't they have Phillip Rivers like 20, 30 years ago? Like, what? I don't. Please explain
Mike
to me. I know
Glennon.
you have to have something in your notes.
Mike Glennon. Come on, Mike Glennon. You don't remember him? Big time college football quarterback.
Yeah.
That was when they were good then. Sorry, I'm looking up
crickets right now.
Looking up
I'm hearing crickets. That's NC State at number 13.
So NC State ended up at 9-3 last year. Okay, their losses were at Mississippi State, at Miami, and at Wake Forest. All teams that ended up either being ranked or were ranked at the time. This year, Jared, when I went through, and there's two key factors, and it's really one key factor that puts them up. So when I went through, I looked at the All-American teams, and I looked at the first teams, and even the second teams for a lot of the Power 5 conferences, right? Or all the Power 5 conferences. So when I did ACC, when you look at first team and also the All-American team, NC State has 5 dudes. Okay, they have a center. They have a lot of other really good linemen. They have 2 linebackers on the All ACC first team, and they have a safety. So you look at the defense, right? Defense moving back is pretty solid, right? A great center in Grant Gibson. He was on the first team for NC State. Here's the biggest thing, Jared. Arguably the best quarterback in the ACC, Devin Leary. That's where you get that high ranking. A quarterback that's an NFL prospect. It's a big-time quarterback, has a good offensive line, has a solid defense, played good last year, only lost to good teams, a lot of returning starters. That's why they're at number 30. I actually don't argue with that ranking of NC State because when I was doing my research specifically today, they came on my radar. Before I even looked at the rankings, I said, I think NC State should be ranked. And then I'm like, I think they should be ranked high. They have the same amount of players, Jared, on the ACC first team as Clemson. And Clemson's ranked number 4. So,
well, I'm glad you bring up Clemson because to me, so Clemson
they have better quarterbacks.
Clemson travels to. Oh no, I'm sorry. NC State travels to Clemson week 5. Well, that is October 1st. So that to me is going to be the real test. And I'm not saying that NC State's going to win that game, but you better make it close because you want to be preseason ranked number 13. You can't go into Clemson, your really only big time matchup of the year, right? I guess they have Wake Forest, who's currently ranked at the moment, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on. But that is the true tail game, right? They open up at East Carolina, who cares? Charleston Southern, who cares? Texas Tech, and UConn, please. So, yeah, when we get to that Clemson game, we'll see how for real NC State is. And if they can actually keep up in that game and it's a close game, or if they get routed, that's going to tell you all you need to know about NC State.
No, that's true. I mean, and then even when you look at, obviously, Clemson's schedule, let me just get it up real quickly. Too many college football teams. It's hard to have all these schedules up at once. So then when you look at Clemson, they're at Georgia Tech. Come on, all right, guys. Like,
see, I just pulled up their schedule too. Like Georgia Tech, okay, whatever. They're in the ACC, so that's fine. You're starting out with a conference opponent.
Monday night.
But then you get Furman. Where the hell is Furman? Who is Furman? I don't even know their mascot. Furman and La Tech, Louisiana Tech. Those are your 2 home openers. See, once again, same thing. ACC, not a tough conference, right? Like you have an opportunity to schedule games that are more meaningful and can actually pump you up in the ratings as the season goes on. And you choose to play Furman and Louisiana Tech. Now,
Jared,
see, right there, I can't even be with Clemson. Like, I can't. When they get to play Notre Dame, was that December 5th? We'll see how good they are then. But Georgia Tech, Furman, and Louisiana Tech.
So,
come on, man.
Jared, and this was most likely made when they were like national champs. This scheduling, right? When they had Trevor Lawrence.
No way.
the Furman Palladians. I don't know what that is.
A Palladian?
They are from Greenville, South Carolina, and they were 6-5 in the FCS conference last year.
Well, they're I don't know.
Gonna be around.
I don't know who their first game is, but they're about to be 1-1 at best.
That is tough. They play North Greenville.
Mm-hmm.
Their first game.
Good. That's a good team. Real good team.
Which is a team lower than the FCS.
Yeah.
All right, we're going down a rabbit hole here that we shouldn't go down.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start getting ourselves angry. This is supposed to be a positive podcast here, okay? But again, so just looking at it, though, the difference with Clemson and NC State's schedule is obviously you have Clemson playing Notre Dame later in the season. Once NC State plays Clemson, if they're able to somehow win that ball game, they only play Wake Forest, who I think is going to be a worse team than they were last year, later in the season, and then North Carolina, who's fairly average most of the season. I mean, Jared, legitimately, this could be a one-loss team that's already ranked number 13. I mean, they have a chance, right? Clemson, at least, they play at Wake Forest right before NC State. So it's going to help. I'm telling you, NC State, they got a chance, man. They really have a chance to be in one of the Big Five bowls. I'm not going to sit here and say they're a top 14. They do have a great QB, which, it happened with Desmond Ridder last year in Cincinnati, right? Why couldn't it happen to NC State? Desmond Ridder getting drafted in the third round. Now he's probably going to be the starter for the Falcons, right? But just saying, NC State's an interesting team to watch. Yes, not the first month because their games suck. But, right, it's going to be interesting starting on October 1st. Their season's going to get really interesting and fun to follow. Let's go over one more thing here. Let's see. Jared, do you think there's a chance this year the highest ranked team that's not in the Power 5 is number 23 Cincinnati? They open up at Arkansas. And then you also have Houston at number 24 and BYU at number 25. Any chance any of those teams from outside the Power 5 get up to where Cincinnati was?
No, listen, I think Cincinnati's going to regress and the air is going to be popped out of their balloon. And that's really because Desmond Ridder, right? What he did, I forget their receiver's name who got drafted by the Colts, I forget his name, but he was a second or third round pick. Like they're losing a lot of offensive firepower. And that is really what they hung their hat on, right? Obviously, you had Ahmad Sauce Gardner, right? One of the top corners, got drafted number 4 overall by the Jets. So you lose not only a lot of good talent, but NFL talent, and not like Cincinnati's here in the top 10 of recruiting classes every year. So I see them regressing a lot. You're starting out with a tough game on the road at Arkansas, who I think is going to be a very good team, an underrated team in the SEC. So I don't see any chance that Cincinnati, sniffs the top 10. I think at best they can maybe get to 15, but I think that is their ceiling this year. And not saying it's a rebuild or anything, but when you lose the talent that they lost, Alec Pierce, I think is his name, the receiver, who they lost as well. I don't see Cincinnati doing it. And I'm looking at Houston and BYU. BYU is one of those teams that they actually recruit pretty decently for their school. And you would think that they would have a better record than they do. It's just usually they don't have, yes, they had Zach Wilson, but usually that's not a quarterback talent, right? Oh, yeah. They're not bringing in the top quarterbacks there. I think they do have good talent in general, but not at the position that you need it the most, which is other than, like I said, with USC and those other teams, head coach, quarterback, everything else, right? BYU kind of has like everything else. Quarterback, not really there, and head coach, So, no, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see a year like last year where we had a Cincinnati, where we potentially had a non-Power 5 conference team making the college football playoff. I think this year, not that it's going to be more straightforward or any less entertaining, but I don't see the chances of that happening twice.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this year. I'll go over it this way. I agree with you on Cincinnati and Houston. Houston does not play a ranked team all season. So what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously they probably have a talented roster, but they don't play a single ranked team, and they didn't have a player in the on the All-American team as well. So it's not like it's not like they have like a Kayvon Thibodeau or some superstar player on their roster. They're really just a bunch of great, Big East guys or whatever the conference they're in is.
American.
Cincinnati, yeah, exactly. The ACC or the AAC, right?
AAC.
The American, the American Airlines Conference. Then you have Cincinnati, who they don't play anybody ranked except for Arkansas at Arkansas the first game.
Yeah, good luck.
So you'd almost have to hope that like you beat Arkansas and then Arkansas doesn't lose the game for the rest of the season, because that would have meant that Arkansas would have beat some like unbelievable teams, and that would be the only way you get in, being undefeated. You'd probably play Houston in the final. Houston's going to be ranked at that point because they're most likely undefeated. So maybe Cincinnati, but again, I'm not banking on it. The team that is interesting though, based on their schedule alone, is BYU. They second week of the season, they're Baylor at home. Baylor's number 10. The next week they're at Oregon, number 11. So let's say Oregon somehow beats Georgia, right? You're looking at two unbelievable games, and BYU is probably going to be ranked in the top 10 if they win both these games. They also play Notre Dame on October 8th at home. Very interesting that Notre Dame. Actually, no, that's a neutral site game. Let's see. That's an all religion game right there too, for all religious fanatics out there. Let's find this game really quickly here.
I think it's at Notre Dame.
Is it? No, it's at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. That makes no sense. So the two religious schools are going to go play in Sin City. Oh, wow, it's just awesome television there, guys.
That makes sense.
And then BYU also plays number 19 Arkansas. Dude, so I mean, that's a brutal schedule. Yeah, the rest of these teams are complete shit that they play, right? And that's why they're only they're right above Utah as far as their strength of schedule. It's not good. But Jared, I mean, for a team that's an independent, right? Pretty impressive that they went out and scheduled 4 teams, and there's nothing you could do about the other teams. You already scheduled them in advance. Let's go get, Notre Dame. Not in Notre Dame either. We're going to play them in Las Vegas, which is way closer to Utah than it is Vegas. It's almost a bus ride over, right? We're going to play Arkansas at home. Arkansas is going to come play in the mountains in altitude. You go to Oregon, not a difficult flight. Maybe Oregon isn't as great of a team, right? And then Baylor at home too. I mean, again, you got to remember the altitude in Utah. We saw it at the UFC pay-per-view this last weekend. It clearly affected some guys. So why wouldn't it affect a bunch of 20-year-olds, right? So BYU maybe, right? But again, Jared, I'm banking on these teams not making it. But BYU does have a name. I do love their coach. Can't say his name, but I do love their coach. But yeah, Jared, when you limit most of your roster to a specific religion, it's going to be hard to eventually find found talent. And I'm not talking shit on Mormons or Catholics or anybody else. If you say most of the school has to be Mormon, it's going to be tough to find the best football players in the world, because Jared, I didn't know one single Mormon football player that was the top 300 player in the last ESPN rankings. So just say
head coach, if I'm hopefully pronouncing this right, if I'm not, sorry, coach.
Let's try.
Kalani Sataki.
Not that bad. Not that bad.
Maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, guys, it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year. The college football rankings this year so far, obviously we have the college football playoff rankings that come out, around Thanksgiving and all that. They're the real ones. But so far, it looks like some interesting storylines could come out for certain teams. You have, the Alabamas, Ohio States, Georgia. They're top 3. They should be there near the end. One of those teams, at least, most likely 2 of them, will be playing in the college football playoff, right? Then you have Clemson, Notre Dame, teams that normally aren't way up there in the rankings, or at least weren't last year. They're at 4 and 5. Clemson, roster-wise, doesn't make much sense. I think we're banking on DJ's weight loss and his just overall talent coming in as a recruit. You then have teams like Utah, very easy schedule at number 7, couple wins here and there, and they're in maybe. Oklahoma, talentless and in the top 10. Doesn't make much sense. And then you have the NC States, the USCs, the Miamis, all piled in, Texas possibly, all piled in kind of in the middle. Some interesting, fan favorite teams. Maybe the media is a little biased and puts them up. And the NC State, obviously not as media biased, but like we explained, really only 2 tough games and 1 really tough game against Clemson, who we think is not as good. So some interesting storylines here for college football. Jared, very, very early college football playoff pick. Who's your champion here still in August for college football's 2022-2023 season?
Come on, man. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I mean, I think everyone who's watched this show knows I'm picking Alabama. That's not because I'm an Alabama fan. It's just Georgia, all the talent that they lost, like the half of their defense went to the NFL, maybe even a little bit more. They lost George Pickens, a great receiver, right? And yeah, hey, Stetson Bennett, he's coming back. Your top 3 quarterback right there, baby. They're putting all their money on him. No, listen, Georgia's still going to have a great roster. All they do is retool and get better and better. Kirby Smart knows that. But Alabama, I think the sting of losing not only the championship, but to one of your rivals in conference to a Georgia team like that, Bryce Young coming back, Will Anderson, who is like arguably the best defensive player in all of college football. He was getting Heisman votes last year, and probably if he stays healthy, we'll get more Heisman votes this year as well. So I think this is even Nick Saban came out, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and he said that last season was somewhat of a retooling year for Alabama.
Stop it.
So,
come on, man.
It's a retooling year for Alabama, but yet they still make the college football playoff game even though they lose. So if this year isn't a retooling year and they're like full go, how can you not pick them to win?
It's Jared. I mean, I don't even want to disagree with you. Really, I do think Alabama's the best team, but because of their schedule, like you
they
never
have a
know.
schedule every year. It's nothing
I know,
new.
but this one's a little different. I mean, it's literally second worst in the nation as far as like difficulty amongst these top 25 teams. When you look at Ohio State and Georgia, and their schedules aren't that difficult. They have really tough first games, and that's it. Like that's literally it.
It's interesting that Alabama has a crazy tough schedule because I'm looking at it right now, and you're at home against Utah State. Like, if you don't blow them out by 50, what are you doing? At Texas, okay, they probably scheduled that game because Steve Sarkisian's now in Texas, former offense coordinator at Alabama. All right, that one, Texas got some good talent, so that could be a good game. Let's see, the next 2, University of El Monroe, nope, at home. Vanderbilt, nope, sorry. I think your dad went to Vanderbilt, so, no disrespect there, but.
No. Let me tell you something about Vanderbilt, all right? My dad went to Vanderbilt. He has no elite. He does not acknowledge the football team part of his past. He said they were shit then, and they're still shit now.
Hey, they're a great.
My dad played baseball. My dad played baseball for Vanderbilt and got a degree from Vanderbilt. That's all that matters. Their football team has been ass, and the only year they were even kind of good is because Aaron Rodgers' brother played for the team, and that's it. They've been awful.
It's not happening. So really, I'm looking at Alabama's schedule, and they've got Texas, who's legitimate. They play at Arkansas. That's gonna be a damn good game. They're going to be up for Texas A&M because they lost to Texas A&M last year on the road, right? So they're going to be up for that one. Tennessee, a lot of people think Tennessee is going to be much improved this year, so I'll give them that one. And then Mississippi State, it's still an SEC game, but usually Alabama handles them.
At home is tough, yeah.
Right. LSU, that one is always, you never know. It's LSU. Who knows what could happen there, right? Ole Miss, I don't really think that's a big deal. Austin Peay.
Right? Don't even get into it.
Here's the other thing that gets
Don't
me,
even
right?
get into it.
If you're going to schedule these cupcake games, I understand why you do it at the beginning of the year. Why are they filling that gap at the end of the year with an Austin Peay? Like, that's almost like taking a regression, right? You've built up all this momentum all year long. Like, more than likely, Alabama's going to be undefeated. Maybe they have one loss. And then you go from playing Mississippi State, LSU, and Ole Miss 3 straight conference games, 3 straight tough games, to playing Austin Peay. Like, mentally, how does that not just mess you up a little bit? Like, hey, man, like, how are we supposed to get up for this game when we know we have Auburn in the Iron Bowl the following week.
No, you
Like,
know what?
that
You know what? Okay. I'll answer that question for you. I don't really understand why they do this either, because I kind of agree with you. It is kind of a waste of a week, and you're just testing injury at that point.
Just take a bye week.
Well, yeah, take the bye week, or just don't play any of the starters. Give them the whole week off, right? Now here in their to their defense, okay, Jared, and really I can defend a lot of SEC teams doing this. You have obviously the most difficult schedule every single year of any college football team, and there's an argument that literally every team in the SEC has the most difficult schedule, right? Especially in the West, right? So you play in Austin Peay, right? Essentially, you should just not play any of your starters and play your backups, right? Then you always have a rivalry game, which is you're always up for. You always want to win. You don't want to lose. And then you also have the SEC championship, which in its turn sometimes ends up being like the national championship. So I can kind of defend them taking a week off. I just don't understand why you just don't have the week off.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
just take the week off. You don't need to play.
Because look, Jared, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? There's games going on this weekend. I don't think there's one SEC team playing. Why isn't the SEC just starting off calling, hey, guys, we're going to have some SEC games. We're going to have some SEC teams playing in August. Here's some TV to watch, right? Oh, yeah, they're going to take the week off, like, right before Thanksgiving. But then you guys remember the SEC championship is going to be insane, right? I mean, there's an argument that you legitimately could have 2 SEC championship games and then an actual SEC championship with the winner of those 2 every single year. Legit. You could. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know why they play these such bad teams. You're just risking injury. Might as well just take the week off, right? There's multiple weeks off in college football. It's not like the NFL. We have one bye week and it's random, right? You have multiple weeks off, and now you have the season starting a week earlier for no reason too. So it's like,
I don't know. Maybe we're just smarter than Nick Saban. Maybe Nick Saban's not as smart as he thinks he is. I don't know.
I agree.
I feel like we came up with a really good plan right there, and it seems a lot smarter. And I understand, like, if you do play your backups, you want to give your backups who are still 5-star recruits who could still probably start at any other college university in the land. You still want to give them some shine, but it's like, why risk injury? But you're totally right. The college season starts right now. I would much rather watch a legitimate game with Alabama versus another SEC team, or another non-conference team, as opposed to getting pretty much to the end of the year when everyone's still hyped, ready to go into the college football playoff, and you got Alabama and Austin Peay on the TV screen. It's like, come on, man. Like, what were we doing here?
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I'll say this, though. Last year, obviously, Alabama ends up losing to Georgia. You could maybe equate that to how difficult their schedule was, right? Guys are going to be a little bit more banged up than other guys over along college football. Again, you have the same exact thing this year. Every single week is hard. Every single week. So I think the same thing happens realistically. And I'm gonna go with Ohio State. I think Ohio State's the most talented team behind Alabama. Their schedule is not as brutal. Yes, weather-wise, it's horrible every game for Ohio State essentially, but those guys are used to it. A lot of those guys are from the Midwest anyways. CJ Stroud takes a step. Got offensive weapon-wise. Trayvon Henderson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Man, oh man, CJ Stroud. It's a brutal team, okay, to face offensively, and a team that knows how to play in the elements. So I'm going to go with them. They're my national championship team. I think Alabama needs to somehow make your schedule in a way easier, because I think everybody just assumes you're going to get it anyways. I don't know why they do this scheduling like this, but Georgia also easier schedule, but I think they lost too much. I think they lost too much to be a returning champ, even though Stetson Bennett is the best college football quarterback in the nation. I'm kidding. He was on the screen just a second ago when I was watching on the TV, so I had to say it again. But yeah, so Jerry, you got Alabama, I got Ohio State. No merit to that. I have no allegiance to that pick.
I'll take that matchup though. I'll take that matchup all day.
I'll take it too. And hopefully we have a surprise team. Hopefully one of these teams comes out of nowhere. Maybe there's an NC State team that's undefeated, and we're like, who the hell is this team? I'll throw this team out there because I follow them. Jared, you follow them a little bit. UCLA has the easiest Power 5 conference schedule in the nation. It's not even close. Their 3 most difficult games. 2 of them are at home. 1 is away at Oregon. The rest of their schedule is very, very easy. 5th-year quarterback, a top quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a returning offensive line, a very solid
for like 10 years.
Great running back as well that's on the Pac-12 first team. Just saying, a team that I'm not saying they're anywhere near the national championship or even the top 10, but a team that could make a run and have a season pilot. Again, there's a reason UCLA wants to go to the Big Ten. Maybe they know they're going to be good this year. Right? Maybe they know they're going to be a surprise team. They're going to be unranked. They're not going to do what they did last year where they go in and they lose to Fresno State after beating LSU. Right? Maybe they sneak up there. Maybe they sneak up. They have a very, very easy schedule going into eventually playing Utah at home. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, they have a good team. Chip Kelly. You said all you need to say about UCLA. I won't even go.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, what are the chances UCLA ends up a little higher in the rankings of UCLA this year at the end? I'm just saying, all the hype, talent-wise,
that I could believe. That you don't have to twist my arm too hard to get me to believe that one. Yeah, no, the hype at USC is crazy right now through the roof. I don't know if they're going to be able to live up to those expectations. To where you're right, UCLA doesn't have that pressure, and so yes, I think we could see them maybe excel because they don't have as much weight on their shoulders every week. But we'll see what happens when we get to that rivalry at the end of the year.
The true underdog, like they have been for the last 25 years in Los Angeles. That's UCLA once again with a similar running back, a similar quarterback, a good offensive line, a solid defense. I'm just saying, look at UCLA. That's my dark horse pick. UCLA ends up higher than USC in the rankings this year. That's going to be my official college football prediction that I'm going to say it's going to happen. Bet UCLA to. I don't even know if you can do that, but maybe they're in the Pac-12 championship game. Maybe that's a bet you can take. That's a bet you can take. All right, Jared, let's keep talking ball. 2 things I don't want to talk about, but we got to talk about on this podcast. That's Deshaun Watson and Kylie Murray. We're going to continue here. As you know, guys, we had a very spirited discussion. We gave our opinions that were very, very straight to the point a couple weeks ago about Deshaun Watson and his suspension. At that time, it was 6 games. We knew it was going to be higher. I called for at least a year. I personally said that he should never play football again. Jared, you wanted it to be much higher as well. And now we have an 11-game suspension, a $5 million fine, and Deshaun Watson returns week 13. He will play this season and returns against his former team, the Houston Texans, in Houston. Jared, your first thoughts about the Deshaun Watson saga essentially being over, and we will see him play this year?
My first thoughts are, things don't just happen by chance. Things aren't just coincidence or coincidental. And once again, the NFL was thinking about the bottom line and thinking about their deep, deep, deep pockets only continuing to get deeper, right? Because how else can you explain moving Deshaun Watson's potential 6-game suspension to 11 games? So where does adding 5 games come into play? And what do you know? The first week that Watson's eligible to come back, who does he get to face? His former team that drafted him, right? That gave him wanted to sign him to a crazy extension. They did, I believe. And he just so happens to come back and play at Houston where he was drafted, a revenge game in a sense, right? Like, wow, just random luck of the draw because no one's going to want to watch Deshaun Watson returning to the team that drafted him where all this turmoil originally started. Of course the NFL is. So to me, it was almost a no-brainer that you suspend him for at least the year and think about maybe not letting him ever play again. But yeah, he now gets to get suspended for an extra 5 games. Like I said, where that extra 5 came from, I don't understand. And I think you can agree to this and attest to this as well. We see players that smoke weed and get a 4 or 5 game suspension. But yet we have allegations of sexual misconduct by more than 23, I believe 24 women, different masseuses. And yet the guy gets an original 6-game suspension. It just, there's no rhyme or reason. There is no structure. There's no way of sitting here and trying to dissect how the NFL and its independent investigators came up with this. To me, this is more about the NFL's bottom line and wanting to continue to make money and thinking that we, the viewers, are just going to get over it, right? I think that's what they're saying is, listen, by the time we get to that week 13, or by the time we even get to week 2 of the NFL season, some other crazy news storyline is going to come up, and all of us are going to be glued to that, and no one's going to be thinking about Deshaun Watson. Now, while that very much well be true, that doesn't mean that we should forget about what allegedly Deshaun Watson did to these women and the fact that he is a psycho and he shouldn't be in the NFL ever again. So this is just about the money, and it's sickening. And the last thing I'll say before I toss it to you, I saw this earlier today on Instagram. Carrie Champion, former ESPN employee, I'm not really sure what she's doing now. She posted a picture of a father and son, and I believe they were at the Cleveland Browns game this past Saturday or Sunday, whenever they played the Philadelphia Eagles. Preseason game, right? Albeit. The father and son are both holding up posters. The father has a poster that I can't say what was said on that poster because I don't think YouTube will allow it. But you should just go look it up because it's pretty damn pathetic and it's pretty sad. And then his son, younger son, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old, is holding up a poster that says "Free Watson." So pretty much they are in the camp of Deshaun Watson. They don't feel that Deshaun Watson did anything wrong at all. And it's like I said, if you go and check out the video, just go on Google, whatever, you can find it pretty easily. It's pretty damn disgusting. So the fact that, you have the NFL, that all they care about is their money, and the fact that you have other people out here, grown-ass adults, that bring their children to a game and make them hold up a sign that says "Free Watson" when the child probably has no idea what he's really saying, it's pretty pathetic. And like I said, it just shows, I think, the lack of empathy that we have for these women and, where the NFL really stands.
Yeah, I mean, Jared, anybody that's, I understand, like, the defense of Watson as far as, he hasn't had any criminal charges ever put on him, and that there is people and women in this culture and stories about NFL players, baseball players, basketball players, where women have lied to gain some sort of fame, to ruin a player's life, right? A lot of us, including myself, thought that was the case at the beginning of all this with Watson. Problem is, when you have 20, 30, 40 women, however many it was, it's hard at that point to not understand there's some trend going on, right? And then he's not remorseful, the way the Browns gave money. Then you see these dumb fucks outside the stadium doing this stuff. I don't understand it. Like, I know Cleveland sucks, right, as a city, and there's probably a lot of idiots that live there, and that's to take offense if you're from Cleveland. But, it's par for the course, Jared. We're going to see people that act like complete lunatics and idiots out in public. So I'm not going to make too many comments. I feel bad for that kid because his father's probably going to teach him the wrong lessons, and who knows what that kid will end up later in his life. But again, I thought this guy should have been suspended for at least a season. I don't want to ever see him play, right? I don't want to play fantasy football with him. As far as using him, I don't want to bet for him. I don't want to cheer for him. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There has to be something to this guy that's strange. And like you said, Jared, there's much more minor offenses of players getting suspended, and just history in other sports of guys really getting punished for this kind of stuff. Jared, imagine this happened in the NBA. You think that a guy is going to be able to play in the 60th game of the season if you have 20? You think Adam Silver is going to let that happen? No way. We saw what happened to Trevor Bauer. That's one woman. And there was literally no charges put against Trevor Bauer. And Watson has 23. He settles with 23 women. One still pending, Jerry. One still going, right? 11 games, 3 months. Everybody send the bench 3 months and you're good. Then we want to see you play. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous. I hope the Browns go 0-17 or whatever the record is this year. And do the Cardinals play them really quick? Let me see the schedule.
I don't know. And just to pile on
Cardinals
here,
don't. So good. We don't fucking play that guy. Cool.
If you want some more reading material, more visual material, I was watching the press conference right after the news came out last week that Deshaun Watson's suspension went to 11 games. Here's all you need to know. Browns ownership was there. Jimmy and Dee Haslam, the husband and wife, right, who own the Cleveland Browns, along with the Browns general manager, and I forget his name. But there's a certain point when a reporter asked a question, and Jimmy and Dee, the husband and wife, the two owners of the team, were both talking over each other. It was like a kindergarten class where like one person couldn't let the other one talk because they both wanted to get out what they wanted to say, and they weren't on the same page. It's like, you guys didn't like rehearse this a little bit? Like, this is, a major story. Obviously, every news outlet in the world is going to want to come and listen to what you have to say, to your response. And they're both kind of talking over each other like a bunch of 5-year-olds. It was so pathetic and so poorly run by them. It made them look horrible. So, like, obviously not that we had, any hope or any faith in Deshaun Watson, and we didn't want him to get signed by the Cleveland Browns. But, like, that interview right there and that press conference, I think only made things worse. Because to me, there was no, it's like they hadn't even practiced. Like, okay, when a reporter asks us this question, we're going to say X. When a reporter asks us this question, we're going to say Y. They were just talking over each other. The general manager standing between them, just like, I don't know what he was thinking. It couldn't have been anything good. It was a very poorly executed way of describing a situation. And I think it made not only Jimmy and Dee Haslam look bad, it made the entire organization look bad because they're standing up for a gentleman with these 24 allegations against these women that gave him the second richest contract in NFL history besides Patrick Mahomes, right? $230 million guaranteed, pretty much. And he's going to lose. I think he's supposed to give back $5 million to that as a part of his suspension.
Oh my God, Jerry, that's going to be so bad for him. That's going to be so bad.
I feel real bad. $5 million.
Oh, you know what? I forgive him. He's going to have to give $5 million. Whatever happened, right? $5 million. That's tough, man. That's tough.
Yeah. Go do those two things. Go look up the idiot dad that took his child to the game and was holding posters and taking pictures. And then go look up the press conference of Jimmy and Dee Haslam and see how idiotic they look trying to answer questions about the suspension of Deshaun Watson. Those two things right there will give you all you need to know about this Deshaun Watson case, irregardless of if you're an NFL fan or what you previously know about this story. That's all you need.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one, Jared. But again, at least we don't have to see this motherfucker for like 3 months, right? It's good. Good. All right. Let's get to some more fun stuff. I was going to say, I'll remember it. I was going to say something just a second ago that was very interesting, but I can't not remember what it is, and it's time to move on. Jerry, why don't you tell the people what we're going to talk about next?
Hey, it's the Kyler Murray fact of the week, right? We have to say something about Kyler Murray every single week.
Every week.
Listen, I think some of the heat has been taken off of him now. We've talked about this before, but there's no longer that independent study clause in his contract. So he can actually get treated like an adult, not like a little kid, right? That has to be monitored when he's at home, making sure he does his homework and he studies. But Cliff Kingsbury has come up with an interesting way of keeping Kyler Murray involved during these preseason games when Kyler Murray is not playing. And he hasn't played a snap. He probably won't play in the third preseason game. It's very common now amongst NFL teams to really not play their main starters at all. The preseason is for a lot of the young guys to get some shine. And so it's not surprising that Kyler Murray is not playing. What is surprising is the fact that Cliff Kingsbury in the fourth quarter of the first and second preseason games has given Kyler Murray the offensive play calling duties. So Kyler Murray literally has a headset on, and he.
Did you say Call of Duty? Did you say Call of Duty just a second ago?
I did I?
I don't know. That sure sounded like you said Kyler Murray and Call of Duty in the same sentence, and that would make sense.
I didn't mean to, but if that slipped out, then hey, it is. What he did have, or what it appeared to be, was Call of Duty gamer headsets on, not the NFL issued like Microsoft headsets. It looked like Kyler Murray literally brought his own gaming headset to an NFL game, knowing that he was going to be calling plays in the fourth quarter. Nick Nenad, resident.
Okay, I mean, the only thing I can hope with this, right, is that he's trolling us. Because at that point, that's hilarious, right? First of all, credit to him. Damn good headphones if he can call plays from the press box with his Call of Duty headphones, okay? I'm just saying, how much money did that guy spend on them? Actually, that's not a good thing now that I'm thinking about that. But, oh, man, I really hope he's trolling and we kick everybody's asses here, Jared. Like, I'm really – it's a wait and see. It's a wait and see with your boy Nick Nenad about his Cardinals. I don't know. Like, when our next podcast, spoiler alert, is going to be our NFL preview. That's all we're going to talk about, unless there's some crazy thing that happens. We'll probably just create our own podcast for that before, right? But legitimately, I had no idea how my Cardinals were going to play this year because of this man right here. Okay, I already told you that his stats on big Call of Duty weeks are not good. Okay, the independent study clause is troubling. Because why would you need to tell a guy that's one of the best QBs in the league to go study film because maybe he's doing something else, and maybe that something else is with a joystick, right? And then now he's calling plays for the team, and he brings what you're right looks like in a side by side comparison his Call of Duty headphones.
I mean, listen.
Wait and see.
Is there
and frickin' see.
Chance that maybe before the game he knew he wasn't going to play before the game or even after the game, he had to get on the sticks, so maybe he's got a console stadium in his locker room, like now how crazy his locker rooms are. Maybe he's got a TV set up somewhere, and maybe he brought his console with him, and before or after the game he's like, hey man, I need to get an hour of gaming in, I need to hit my stats for the day. And then he was like, oh well shit, if these can work for my gaming, why can't I just use these? They're comfortable. They're right now. We're trolling you, Nick. I've got to do it to you. You're my boy. I get trolled all the time about my Cowboys. So when I get a chance to troll someone else,
that's fair. I have been trolling you about
precious moments.
I've been trolling you about Trayvon Diggs. I deserve dig back. No pun intended. Kyler, this is the only joystick you should be using. Okay, the rest of the season. It's okay if you use your remote at home, for your television if you want to watch a little, whatever the Dragon show that just came out that's huge. I didn't know.
It was good, by the way. I watched it last night. Must see.
Okay.
Must see.
I might have to get into I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so I don't feel like I should
go back and watch Game of Thrones first. There's a lot of episodes, so just take a month off and do that. Come out of hibernation. And then watch House of the Dragon.
I got that in February. I can't do that right now. So I'll watch House of the Dragon next year. But Jared, this should be the only joystick. And realistically, Jared, he's rich enough now. He should have a television that he just speaks to. Like, I don't even want him touching anything that has buttons on it. Nothing. I want him only playing with this and the remote to watch film. Okay, that's it. That's all I want to see. And until then, obviously, I'm not going to be able to see that. Until then, the week 1 when we beat the Chiefs' ass in Arizona.
Pretty confident.
I'm waiting and seeing. And if it's not that season's disappointing, I'll watch Hard Knocks and watch what's actually been going on. It will be the most entertainment on this show ever. I'll tell you that right now.
Just be ready. The moment the next Call of Duty update comes out, we're having an emergency podcast because we need to know exactly what Kyler Murray's doing. We are officially on Kyler Murray watch. So,
dude, I might have to get a Twitch just to go on his page and I'll live tweet it.
You need to document and calculate the hours that this man is putting in with his Twitch and with his gaming compared to actually studying and doing his damn job that he got $230+ million for. So I'm telling you, I'm going to be on the lookout. The moment that Call of Duty comes out with the next update is the moment that Kyler Murray starts to sink. You just better hope that it's after the NFL season and nowhere in the fall or through the holidays.
Jared, college football's back this
Pretty
week.
unlikely.
You were out on the high school fields of San Diego County covering games, right? All these fun or horrible stories we talked about at the end. It's all part of football. This means football's back. And nothing means football is back more than the Cover 2 podcast NFL season preview. And that will be coming out. Our next podcast, unless we have an emergency one, our next full podcast will be an NFL preview. We're going to try to get you guests. We're going to try to get you and have the most fun. Maybe a couple beverages will be shared on the podcast. Jared, hell, maybe we'll even do it live. We'll figure it out, right? But our next show before Rams and Bills happens on September 8th is our NFL preview. So get ready. In the meantime, please go watch this podcast. Again, college football starts this weekend, but it really doesn't start till the next weekend. So you have a good 10, 11 days to watch this thing, if it ends up not being, as good. So yeah, that's the end of the podcast. Jared, are you still there or did I lose you?
We're still here. Sorry, we got a phone call late, but don't worry, we nixed it.
Okay.
It's good.
I
was making sure it wasn't someone calling me about Kylie Murray. We're on Kylie Murray watch. So
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. This podcast is done. I don't want to talk about Kyler anymore. Hopefully, we don't. I guess we got to talk about it next podcast. Maybe it'll be the preview. But for this podcast, we're done. I am Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we'll see you next week or the following week with our NFL preview, guys. Football's back, baby.